I catch you with these arms that hold me back against this wall. Release me from these chains that hold me fast. You see, there's a light at the end that I'm running to. If you hold my hand, then I'll show you there's a lot more waiting for us all at the end of the road.
So we're right in the middle of this series of hip-hop and how and what it can teach us here in the church. You know, some things in life are so gray and indistinct, and other things are pretty clear in our lives. Tonight is one of those nights. This summer, I've spent a lot of time while on sabbatical pondering the question about what is really sacred. What in our world is sacred? What sacred ideas do we hold? And how do we know? How do we know if something is sacred or not? It's a question that our kind, being humanity, has struggled with for a very, very long time. It might be a hard pill to swallow, but the rapper from this song reminds us that Jesus walks with those people that we don't want to. You know who they are, right? The undesirables of the world. Fill it in for you, whoever it is for you. Is it a prostitute? Is it a drug dealer? Is it a crack dealer? Is it someone of a different orientation than you? Someone who has a different color skin than you? Someone who dresses different than you? Someone who listens to rap music and you don't? And there's this timely revelation in this song. There is no church in the wild. What is sacred? This song hurts me. Hurts me a lot. Kanye West and Jay-Z collaborate with Frank Ocean for this song, and it's very intense, and at its basis, it really is kind of a see ya to organized religion. It's kind of existential angst that maybe we all bring sometimes, and why church just isn't better. It's got a great hook. I keep seeing that hook. So can this song be sacred? What in the wild is sacred? Seems like organized religion is taking a big beating lately. Everywhere I went this summer when I was speaking, that's what I spoke about, is church and culture, and is the church dying? And most people say yes, it is, in some form or fashion. How are we doing, though, on creating hope and meaning? Are we so ready to just give it up and say there's no church out there, it doesn't matter, and so what does it matter anyway? I mean, I look out at you here, it's a beautiful day. There's a lot of other people that could be doing something different with their lives right now, and you've chosen to make this an important part of your week for whatever reason. Is it because it's sacred? Is it because it's expected? Is it because you believe that the church has hope and meaning? Or is it simply because you can't do the wild without church? Seems to me that in the wild, though, there's a lot more being discussed about how to live a life that models a life of love and mercy than what happens in the safety of our walls. For me, this song foreshadows this growing reality that I'm seeing that we face as we see kind of the non-affiliated rise in our country. The non-affiliated, those people who say, I don't affiliate with any religion. I'm not even talking about Christian. I'm just saying they're like, I don't care. Right now, if you ask people, there's a research that just came out that said 1 in every 5. Tomorrow, wherever you go, every 5th person is one of those people. They don't affiliate. They don't want to. Do they need to? Is that sacred? Hip-hop has become a really powerful outlet for people that are looking for meaning in a sense of sacred, and I may not like it because I don't. You know, this isn't about Suzanne's really into hip-hop right now, so we're going to do a series on hip-hop. It's not. But I think it has something to teach us. We know the power of music. Hooks and lines, they get stuck in us, and they get on repeat, right? You have those days, don't you, where there's just a song in your head and you would do anything to get it out of your head, but it becomes a part of your meaning. It becomes that thing that finds you, right? And it helps to make meaning in the culture that we live in. And yet these kind of lyrical vignettes that find their way into our souls, I hope create a canon of hope for us in a hopeless world. It's great power music, these phrases. And so I wonder with you tonight, are we in the wild, so to speak? And is our church really not in the wild at all? For me, the wild is kind of this spiritual condition, a state of mind, if you will, more of than I'm going to say the church doesn't ever engage in culture, because we sit here every Sunday evening and we're about culture in this service. But I think all of us could say at some point within us that there's something wild and mysterious about how God is interacting or not interacting with us. And sometimes when it's not God interacting with us, it's usually us. God always reaching across to us, giving us something. It has nothing at all to do with the streets or the wild out there, but the wild in here. And so we have this great scripture in front of us. So good, one of my favorites in the Bible. To find some hope in the midst of this wildness, in the midst of our condition that isn't new at all. Follow the commands of God, and you will be blessed. Refuse to follow them, and you will be cursed. It's pretty clear. And I don't like it at all. Right away, I get a little nervous. Some of you are shifting in your seats. You're waiting for the, banging on the pulpit, right? Choose this or die sermon. An objection is rising inside of you. Suzanne, that sounds good, but there are an awful lot of good people, followers of God's law, who are in fact cursed, whose lives don't go well, who fail, who suffer. And there's an awful lot of wicked people, Suzanne, who despise God and don't live about hope and mercy. And yet they seem to do pretty well. In fact, they prosper. The point of life is that biblical Jews also felt this same objection. Think about it. They wrestled with this question. Look at Job. We have this wonderful figure in the book of Job. He's a classic example of someone challenging God with tough questions when everything just seems to go wrong for no reason. Jeremiah the prophet complains incessantly about why the wicked prosper. Let's face it, in light of what Moses indicates to us in Deuteronomy this evening, it all sounds nice and neat. But life isn't nice and neat. Life is wild and messy. And at this point, the church has been relegated to a non-actor in most people's lives. The churches might be empty in the wild. So what do we do about it? Kanye asked that question, what's a mob to a king? What's a God to a non-believer? Without God or faith and institutions, to whom or what will we be accountable to? Doesn't really matter if we're choosing life or death, it seems to me anyway. But listen to what he says just prior in Moses to the blessing and curse in Deuteronomy. Take these words of mine into your heart and into your soul. That's the level that we're at. That's where the wild is. The blessing of the author speaks here has little to do with the surface of one's life, the stuff that is driving you nuts right now, that you're taking notes on, the things that you need to do when you leave here this evening, all the bills that you have to pay, the phone calls that you haven't returned, the emails that just keep piling up. has little to do with that. And the same goes for the curse. It doesn't mean that if you follow God's law, you will always have good health. Case in point right here. It doesn't mean you will never experience setbacks or failures. Another case in point right here. That you will always be honored. That you will always be well thought of. It doesn't mean that, because those are the things that pertain to the surface level of your life. And it doesn't mean that ignoring God's command will induce failure and sickness and rejection. Those are the things that are at the surface level of our lives. Instead, it's about the wildness of our hearts and the wildness of our souls, the deepest, deepest level of ourselves. The heart, the soul, the very center of who you are, that God made part of you. When you are most authentically yourself, when you in that moment feel sacred something, that's what we're talking about here. That energy that undergirds all levels of your life, that informs you, but it's so wild and so unattainable that it seems elusive at best. Rolling Stone did an interview with Sting a while ago, and they asked him, is there anything that you wish you had? And Sting, this masterful musician, replied, I have a beautiful wife, a lovely daughter, I have money and I have fame, but there's still an emptiness in me. Now, Sting, who in the world's eyes has everything that you could possibly imagine a person would want, he is wealthy beyond my comprehension level. He lives in a mansion in Ireland. I mean, who doesn't want to live there? It's amazing. He's known everywhere. He's written some of the biggest hits in the world, but still he says there's an emptiness in his heart. What kind of emptiness could there possibly be if he has everything that the world says is necessary? I'm struggling with that. I have everything that the world says I need, and yet I'm still empty. It's that notion of living in the wild where the sacred hasn't yet been harnessed or secured or sometimes even noticed. I bought a band from To Write Love on Our Arms. We've talked about that organization a lot. This is one of their t-shirts. Chris is on a shirt. And I'm going to wear it for a while because it's a reminder for me. And it says, I am living a story and I will not give up. It's clear to me that as humans, when we get in a mob, we try to seek our own path. We're rebellious. We try to turn away from establishments in search of a new order. And that's not always a bad thing. It's not always bad at all to be in the wild. But yet, I wonder, what do we do when God says choose life or choose death? The choice is ours to make. What a wild way to craft humanity. What do you detest more, hypocrisy or death, God? I choose life, and yet I can't get my act together. So then I want to choose death, but you say there's always hope. When you searched for an example and you didn't find one in your world, did you ever consider yourself as the example, your heart as the one that needs to be leading you? All these questions that rise against us. The thing about this song, when I first started with it, was this song is a hopeless song. That it's just a picture of religious contradictions and that challenges us to reconsider the definition of piety or righteousness the way that Socrates did. But I don't think that's the case. If we're in the wild, on the street corners, in tattoo parlors, in the bars, in the galleries, on the streets, people are overwhelmingly able to tell me where they find meaning and what they hold sacred. So what is our problem? The problem is we can't. We stand at this crossroads as outlined in our scripture, and we wonder what to do. Paul Tillich is a famous theologian, and he often wrote about grace. He says, grace strikes us when we are in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of meaningless and empty life. It strikes us when year after year the longed for perfection does not appear, when the old compulsions reign within us as they have for decades, and when despair destroys all of our joy and all of our courage. And sometimes at that moment, he writes, a wave of light breaks over us into the darkness, and it is as though a voice was saying to us, you are accepted. You're accepted. You're accepted. You're accepted by that which is greater than you, by a name which you do not know. Do not ask for the name. Perhaps you will find it later. Don't try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. That is wild. So grace calls out to us tonight, my friends. You're not just a disillusioned old man who may die soon, a middle-aged woman who's stuck in a job that you don't want anymore, a young person feeling the fire in the belly begin to grow cold because you don't really like what you're doing. You may be insecure. You may be inadequate, mistaken. Death, panic, depression, disillusionment, they may be near you. But you are not just that. You're accepted. That's life. That's blessing. That's wild. That is hope. It is about the wild grace of God that is not contained in these walls. So place these words on your heart, deep inside of you. Tie them on your hands and on your foreheads as a reminder. Teach them to your children, Moses says. Talk about them wherever you are, sitting at home or walking in the street. Talk about them from the time you get up in the morning until you fall into bed at night. Inscribe them on the doorposts and the gates of your cities so that you will live a long time on the soil that God has promised to you. For as long as there is a sky over the earth, for today God has said, I bring you to the crossroads of blessing and curse. It is about church in the wild. What I'd like for you to do is I'd like you to get one or two more people, and I'd like for you, if you're comfortable, to share for just a few minutes about where you're seeing hope in the wild. Where did you see it this week? Where do you want to see it if you haven't seen it in a while? Okay? Hello? Everybody's really quiet tonight. You're kind of freaking me out. Okay? So, I know, I love that. Thank you, Eric. So, take a few minutes and share with someone, where did you see hope in the wild this week?
See, I catch you with these arms that hold me back against this wall. Release me from these chains that hold me fast. You see, there's a light at the end that I'm running to. If you hold my hand, then I'll show you there's a lot more waiting for us all at the end.